Few things in combat sports are as dramatic and exciting as a one-punch knockout, but not all one-hitter quitters are equal. Some are simply more iconic than others, and today's list consists of the very best ones, including those you may never have seen before. Martin Nguyen versus Eduard Folayang. We'll kick things off with one championship's double champ, Martin Nguyen, who is arguably one of the heaviest-handed pound-for-pound fighters in the promotion. Having already defeated the previously undefeated Marat Gafurov to win the featherweight title at One Quest for Greatness in August 2017, Nguyen moved up to lightweight to challenge Filipino legend Eduard Folayang at One Legends of the World in November 2019. Being a wushu expert, Folayang utilized his kicks and spinning attacks to outstrike Nguyen in the first round. The Aussie relied more on his boxing, landing some good shots, but blow for blow, well, he was still second best. Folayang continued to entertain fans with his flashy spinning attacks for 7 minutes, until all of it became a little too predictable. 2 minutes and 20 seconds into the second round, Folayang went for another spinning back kick, but was caught with a big overhand right midway through his move, and that was all she wrote.
Featherweight champion,
Vanderlei Silva versus Sakuraba. Having already defeated Gracie Hunter Kazushi Sakuraba twice before, Vanderlei Silva entered their trilogy at Pride Total Elimination as a heavy favorite. The fight had a certain rhythm to it. Both Big Vanderlei and Sakuraba started the fight by carefully circling around and waiting for their opponent to make the first move. Sakuraba attacked first, which led to a quick flurry of strikes from both sides, but nothing too significant. After a few seconds of no action, another big flurry of punches came, followed by another few seconds of stalemate, and again another flurry of punches. The pattern continued for 5 minutes before Sakuraba attempted a nimble leg kick with his chin exposed. Silva made the most of it by responding with a lightning-fast 1-2 and sending the Japanese legend crashing onto the canvas. The Gracie Hunter became the hunted once again. Alexis Via versus Joe Warren. Now, Via and Joe Warren are not household names, but we appreciate a good knockout when we see one. Via's controversial persona outside of the cage aside, his win against Warren was one of the highlights of his career. The two fighters locked horns in a bantamweight tournament at Bellator 51 in 2011, when tempers were high and both men hated each other to the point that they promised to teach one another a lesson. As soon as the fight started, Via threw a head kick that Warren blocked. Warren responded by charging forward with a couple of boxing combinations, but he missed, and Via reconnected with a big counterpunch to rock him before attacking him against the cage. After a separation, Via crushed his opponent with a crisp left hook to earn an iconic KO victory. Melvin Manhoef versus Mark Hunt. When it comes to having the sturdiest chins in the game, Mark Hunt, well, he is one of the GOATs because he was impossible to knock out, especially in his younger years. So Melvin Manhoef's victory over the Super Samoan is pretty much Hall of Fame stuff. Hunt was supposed to fight his kickboxing rival Jerome Le Banner at K1 Dynamite in 2008, but the Frenchman had to withdraw a few days before the fight and was quickly replaced by Melvin Manhoef, who was far more experienced in MMA compared to Hunt. The bout started and Hunt pressed Manhoef into the corner, but the Dutch quickly turned the tables on him by landing one right on the button to knock him to the mat. Manhoef then quickly stood over Hunt and finished the job only 18 seconds into their fight. Ong La Nsang versus Ken Hasegawa. Ong La was for years the face of One Championship, and that is thanks to his incredible run of victories and highlight reel performances against some of the toughest fighters in Asia. His first fight against the Japanese slugger Hasegawa is widely regarded as the greatest fight in One Championship and Asian MMA history. The fight took place in Ong La's home country of Myanmar at One Spirit of a Warrior. The two heavy hitters threw everything but the kitchen sink at one another, inflicting tons of punishment in each round and battering each other's faces. While they had a calculated start, the last couple of rounds saw a complete slugfest, with both fighters swinging without any regard for defense. With less than 2 minutes left on the clock, Ong La rocked a completely gassed Hasegawa with a solid uppercut, before putting him to sleep in a violent fashion with a far more powerful uppercut, as the stadium in Myanmar erupted in joy. Rashad Evans versus Chuck Liddell. Being one of the most violent and feared fighters in the UFC, Chuck Liddell would have never thought that Rashad Evans would trade with them at level terms. But Suga took the risk, and the end result, well, it was sweet. Heading into the fight, both men were supremely confident, and for obvious reasons. Liddell was one of the best fighters in the world at that time, whereas Rashad Evans had never tasted defeat, and both had the edge in their respective departments. Despite being a very dynamic wrestler, Evans decided to keep the fight standing. To his credit, he did make it hard for Liddell to land clean on him due to his educated movement, but he still absorbed some big shots in the first round. The second round was much of the same, with Liddell putting pressure on his opponent and Evans relying on counterattacks. While trading punches in the pocket nearly halfway through the second round, Evans was forced against the cage. Liddell got a bit too reckless and let his guard down, and as soon as Evans found the opening, he landed a crushing overhand right that knocked the champion out cold. Liddell was out for a minute before he regained his senses.
Oh, big uppercut! He's out!
Anthony Pettis versus Stephen Thompson. After an unsuccessful run in featherweight and lightweight from 2015 to 2018, Anthony Pettis decided to move up to welterweight, where he debuted against former two-time title challenger Stephen Thompson at UFC Fight Night in March 2019. Thompson, being the more experienced welterweight and the better striker on paper, was the betting favorite and was in control of the fight for as long as it lasted. Wonderboy used his distance control and diverse striking skill set to outstrike the divisional newcomer, forcing him against the cage and landing his shots. With his back against the fence seconds before the end of the second round, Pettis responded in a spectacular way, leaping forward with a sensational Superman punch that totally caught Thompson off guard.
Wonderboy.
The UFC welterweight legend was out as soon as Pettis connected. Fedor Amelianenko versus Andrei Arlovsky. Long considered the greatest heavyweight of all time, Fedor Emelianenko was heavily criticized between 2007 and 2008 for fighting subpar competition instead of facing the best fighters in the world. And all of that changed when he squared off against Andrei Arlovsky at Affliction 2 in 2009. Arlovsky controlled range for the first minute or so, using his speed to his advantage before Emelianenko initiated the clinch, and the two traded punches and knees until the referee separated them. Once they went back to trading shots in the center of the ring, Arlovsky peppered Fedor with a 1-2, followed by a few body shots and a body kick, and got a little too excited. Arlovsky tried to follow his flurry of strikes up with a big flying knee, but in midair, he was caught with a big right hand. And down to the canvas he went, face first. Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal. Kamaru Usman first beat Jorge Masvidal by a comfortable decision at UFC 251, where the latter stepped in on short notice to replace Gilbert Burns. The Miami native's gritty performance and post-fight chatter earned him another shot at the belt. 4 weeks before their fight, Masvidal talked the talk, but he unfortunately failed to walk the walk. Masvidal came out firing with leg kicks in the first round at UFC 261, outstriking Usman during the first few minutes as the fight stayed on the feet. Masvidal then went for a knee strike, which opened the door for a takedown, although Gamebred would make his way back to his feet before landing his best shots, a punch and a knee. In the second round, Masvidal resumed with positive intent, but a minute later, Usman would feint a takedown and then launch a rocket of a right hand to knock Masvidal out cold, before landing a few hammer fists just to make sure that his foe wouldn't get up.
And of all the superlatives.
Dan Henderson versus Michael Bisping. Dan Henderson is the greatest fighter to never win a UFC belt, and he's particularly known for his sturdy chin and an overhand right that has cracked multiple chins throughout over the years. Hendo has produced tons of highlight reel moments in his career, but none more iconic than his victory against Michael Bisping at UFC 100. Henderson and Bisping entered the fight after weeks of trash talking, so tempers were certainly pretty high. The first round was uneventful, with Henderson stalking Bisping while loading on his H-bomb, and the Brit moving around to avoid it at all costs. However, Mike consistently made the mistake of circling into Hendo's right side, and in the second round, he paid the price for it. After missing a few overhand rights, Henderson finally connected with one and knocked Bisping out cold. Francis Ngannou versus Alistair Overeem. Francis Ngannou may not be the baddest man on the planet anymore, but he is still the most scariest thanks to his hulking physique and power that can crack the sturdiest of chins at the faintest of touches. The Cameroonian's touch of death against Alistair Overeem was anything but a faint one. At UFC 218, Ngannou faced Overeem in a potential title eliminator. Despite being one of the best strikers in the division, Reem didn't want to stand and trade with the Predator, and for obvious reasons. As soon as the fight started, Overeem charged forward with a punch before going for a takedown. Ngannou defended and the two got caught up in the clinch. After a separation, Ngannou landed a jab before murking his foe with a thunderous uppercut that shut Overeem's lights out way before he even hit the canvas.
And a matchup with Ngannou! Goes the Reem!
Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo. Conor McGregor knocking out Jose Aldo in only 13 seconds is the most iconic one-punch KO and moment in mixed martial arts history, point blank. While the KO itself wasn't as terrifying as some of the others we have seen in this video thus far, it tops the list simply because of the magnitude of the occasion. Heading into their UFC 194 bout, Aldo was the most dominant champion in featherweight history. He was a tiny wrecking ball who would punish his foes until they'd give up. Yet McGregor had this aura of invincibility about him. McGregor, being the trash-talking phenom that he is, rattled Aldo with his verbal onslaught and antics, so much so that the King of Rio admitted to being infuriated, and hence he wanted to teach the Irishman a lesson. Aldo's emotions got the better of him. The fight started and Aldo made the first move, a leg kick, and then charged forward with reckless abandon, trying to find his foe's chin. Instead, he ran into a piston of a left hook and immediately went down. McGregor added an extra strike on his downed opponent to put an end to one of the most glorious title reigns in UFC history.
Smiling. Oh!
After their fight, McGregor's team posted a video of him practicing the fight-ending sequence backstage as if he knew what Aldo was going to do. A perfect 10 out of 10 performance by Mystic Mac. Now with that, we have come to the end of our video for the wildest one-punch knockouts in MMA history. Did we miss any? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you liked our video, please show us some love by subscribing and turning on the notifications so we keep bringing you highlight reel moments like the ones that you just watched. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.